Okay, I'm good on my end.
Okay, testing. If you guys could go around and just say your name.
Darcy. Well,
Ingrid.
Amir.
Is that good on your end?
Yep, I'm good.
Cool. Where's the camera?
This guy right over here.
That was a great question.
Is it like reality TV or?
I didn't even think about that.
Great question. So you don't have to worry because this actually catches a 360 over here. So whoever speaks, it will catch in that direction as well too. So, yeah.
Looks like Wally.
Oh yeah.
You got a little
So we will start with our first question here, but if you could each take 2-3 minutes to introduce yourself and answer this question, and we can just start here and go around the room. Actually, Jason, are you good?
I'm good.
Recording? Yeah. Okay. So if you could introduce yourself, but then also state what your key issue is in the 2020 election, and what issue, if you had 10 hours, if the president had 10 hours in the day to solve 11 issues, what's the one thing they should push to tomorrow? So the most important in your mind and the least important in your mind. Start right here.
My name is James Loomis. Most important issue in 2020 for life. Yeah, I'm very passionate about that. That is a Christian life begins at conception. Life begins. That's something we're passionate about. I'm very glad with Alabama last case doing.
And then your least important, wait, it sounds offensive to say least important, but what you prioritize, you want the president to prioritize the least, whoever is the president. And it can be subjective or objective, just selfish or, yeah.
I'm trying to think of this. I mean, it's interesting because like the immigration thing, I have many opinions on it, but I think that's like something that I think he's focused a lot on, and it's other issues that should be focusing on. I think that should be the back burner.
Hi, I'm Amir Yassai, and obviously as a queer Muslim, I think for me, the Muslim ban is like definitely an issue that I would sit down with the president, because I think, especially in my family, most of them are doctors and lawyers and businessmen and giving back, and they're all in the high tax bracket. So you're banning people that are giving back to the government and are successful, like important people in society. And I think that, and also from a human standpoint, it's just not right. And America is built on freedom and inalienable rights, and you're asking people that are American citizens to leave. So that's definitely the biggest issue for me. When it comes to kind of the least important issue, I hate to say it, but for me, like climate control and climate change, it's a very important, but I think that if I had to pick through all the different things from abortion to immigration law, I'd have to pick that.
Hello, my name is Ingrid Giovanni, and what I think the president should focus on in the 2020 election would be your least climate change, because it affects everybody. It affects human life, it affects animal life, it affects plant life, and we're in imminent danger. Our globe is set for global catastrophe. I mean, I think yesterday the United Nations Climate Panel report came out, and our sea levels are rising 3 inches per year, and you know, it just killing off massive life, and that only leads to us. And not like we're the best part or the top part of the animal chain. We're all in this together. And I don't have a least important issue because they all matter to me. Reproductive rights, race, ethnicity rights, they're all important to me, and they all have a place because we can all take better care of each other. Thank you.
I'm Will Jorgensen, and I think the number one issue is lowering taxes. I would love to see a 10% flat tax across the board, because that would increase the value of the dollar. So every time we go to work, we earn more money, even if it's the same amount of money, because each dollar is worth more. My least important issue is building the wall. Just stop building the wall. It's a complete waste of money. Walls don't work. They didn't work when Genghis Khan came into China. They're not going to work in the 21st century with what's that great movie? Cars, planes, and automobiles, or something like that. Trains, ships. I mean, you can go around, you can go over. It's just, there's tunnels already in place. They've been cameling freaking drugs into America forever. And I mean, that's another huge one. Like, let's just stop the war on drugs. Like, that's like the number two issue. Those two things would make America so much better. Anyway.
Joseph?
Not specific to this election, but just in general, the president has to always be aware of and try to rein in the best of their ability sort of security apparatus that can lead us easily to wars in other countries. It's always, since World War II, this has always been an issue. The United States has faced and sometimes gotten involved in military activity that we shouldn't have. I think one very positive thing that can be said about Donald Trump's first term is that when faced with certain choices that have come up, we've all seen the news, he's tried to back away from military engagement and seek economic pressure or negotiations and other routes. I give him a lot of credit for that, because I think in the United States, the president is always being told from certain places within our government and offices that we don't get to vote on that need to take military action. And I think he just fired the National Security Advisor recently, John Bolton, probably voiced sentiments to him, and he ended up out of his job right now. So that's a key issue. I would always put a lot of importance on how the person coming into president for the next 4 years, how they would address that. Are they aware of the importance and finding alternatives to military conflict? And the least important issue, I mean, it's been already talked about a little bit about climate change. So I would be understanding Ingrid saying, based on media coverage, based on probably what's taught in our curriculum in schools now, young students, young children in the country are getting the idea that catastrophe is around the corner. And it's interesting if we have a rise of global temperatures or sea temperatures or loss of ozone layer, different elements that this is catastrophic for the Earth. I think in education they should go more into explaining, from throughout ice ages, throughout periods of time when even mammals weren't on the planet. Temperatures fluctuate. There's lots of activity. There's cosmic elements to this, and volcanic elements to what goes into global temperature. So I think it's a very interesting topic, and if you delve into it enough and learn enough about it, it's interesting to think about how you have to rezone, or where you want building to occur in ocean areas. I think there was just in the news pictures and results of the coast of one of our southern states in the Gulf, that after a hurricane had devastated an area years ago, vacation houses and everything have all been built back right where the shoreline is, right where you get the best postcard views, and you don't have to even be a climate scientist to predict that some of these structures could be damaged in the future, weather events. So it's a very interesting topic, and how you plan for future, where sea levels are going to be, and where you want ports to, what protection you want for port facilities, and where you want people to build their residences and stuff. And preventing pollution is always important, but the way it's addressed now, I would put it as not the actions being proposed are not the right remedies, and so it's not a high priority for the president, for me, right?
Okay, great. And we'll get into all that as well too.
Yeah.
Follow-up questions, or did you want to?
Just one more individual please. If you could specify, regardless of what you believe now, specify the religion that you were raised with, and if you had to attribute one positive aspect towards your current political identity that gave you, how it influenced you positively, and one negative that maybe you're trying to overcome or that you see in yourself. Yes, what religion, let's say first 18 years of your life, regardless of what you believe now, your parents, that community, that religious community, what did it instill in you that you view as a positive thing, and what did it instill that you think that you have to overcome? And you can go in any order you want on this one, whenever you're ready to answer.
I'm ready to answer. Raised as a queer Muslim, my parents are immigrants, and I was very religious for a very long time. And I think a really positive aspect of that is community and coming together, and also being queer. There's also that community. And I've been involved in city council, and I work with the LGBT center. So being able to create community that really comes from religion. I'm not religious now, but I definitely colloquially use Muslim as like kind of my indicator. It's also for shock value, like being a queer Muslim, that shocks people. They're like, you can't be gay and Muslim. How does that work? But if you believe in God and you created gay people, then you have to believe that those things come together. A negative aspect, I think, would be something that I'm working on, would be kind of judgment, because a lot of religious people and a lot of religious communities are very judgmental of the outside world, of people that are secular or someone that's atheist. So that's something that I've had to work through, and I've definitely passed. But it's, if you have to pick a negative thing, that's what it's.
I was raised as a Christian, born in a raised in a Presbyterian church. I go to a Presbyterian church here, Mosley, Bel Air Church. I'm very active in the church. I'd say a positive aspect, I'm very community. I don't think I'd still be in Los Angeles without the community I've created here. Like, I needed like a strong group of people, especially what I do in the film industry. Things fluctuate. Times like where I'm just staying for the moment. Like, the guy opened his home to me. I haven't had him dine my name. He's giving me food. He's helping me with gas. It's like, he's a very loving guy. Downside, obviously, I think a lot of Christians can be perceived as judgmental. One thing I want to work on, and I go to a church in Hollywood, Mosaic, that their slogan is love does. And I think the core of the gospel of Christianity is love. And I think love should be the focus of everything. But even like love should be sometimes you need to have, like, and I've had hard conversations with myself. Sometimes you need like a loving person to say, hey, you're messing up. You're not doing what you should be doing. And that's what I think you dig down, even like when Jesus was alive. He was very like, he'd be the one to be like, I love you, and I love you enough to tell you like you're not where you should be. Like, I want so much more for you. So I think love can be perceived as like, oh yeah, love is just like, we're all kind and but like sometimes you need to have hard conversations. And it can hurt, but it's like, if you want to be a better version of yourself, like, I think we all want to be the best versions of ourselves.
I was raised at a born-again Christian church. My mom was very zealous. I read the Bible a lot growing up, and I think that benefits me every single day of my life. There's a lot of wisdom in the Bible. Like, when you read the stories, you learn like how horrible things can go and how to make wise judgments throughout. And it benefits me every day because I feel like I'm a very kind and open person because I've committed so much time to it. Like I don't like to lie very often. I'm always on time. I'm very integrity based from it. One of the negative aspects of it is expecting the world to end, and Revelations. I'm always going, okay, as long as there's no meteor named Wormwood, we're fine. So I mean, that's probably my biggest negative aspect is every so often it's like, no, that's probably not happening.
I was raised Catholic. I spent a lot of allegiance to that whole church and institution. I mean, it helped give me, as just, a white middle class kid growing in the United States, I was just part of the general culture, but there was this one element that, maybe I only went to those classes once a week or something, but I had an identity that I felt was a little more unique, and especially when I ended up going to a parochial school that was from, Anglican church. I was, you become aware that how your beliefs are a little different than just the general population. And when I was old enough, you start to learn that, the Catholic communities in the United States weren't really power at the top of the hierarchy of most of the country. And you just, I wouldn't say I'm a minority member group, but I mean, it gives you a little bit of that perspective that in the United States that we all come from different backgrounds, and what's unique about me, and so that was real valuable for me. And then in the Catholic Church, the traditional lot is to accept what's given as direction, as authority, as teaching, and not so much question it. There are intellectuals, and there's great Catholic schools, and there's great intellectual teachers and priests, but the general tradition is, we tell you what to think, and so I rebelled against that concept, and so kind of maybe not practicing correct Catholic memory, but I still have a lot of interest in participation in church.
Okay or not?
As soon as she gets, but then yes, please.
I was tried to be raised, or I don't know how you would phrase that, but my family tried to raise me as a Catholic. And since I was a child, I questioned that. And I guess the positive aspect for me just growing up is that I'm trying really hard to find it. You get to learn some beautiful things, like, don't treat anybody badly. Don't do harm to your neighbor. Don't treat anybody like shit. But I feel like those teachings are universal, so I wouldn't credit the Catholic Church to that. And the negative aspect was what he mentioned, that they tell you what to think, and they regiment your life. They tell you how to dress and what not to wear, or I'm sorry, not to think and not to do. And since I was a child, I questioned, like, why or why not? And that's why I say that I was tried to be raised as Catholic, because ever since I was a child, I was kind of like, this doesn't align with my way of life. So yeah,
So I was wondering, you mentioned something about being raised Catholic making you kind of feel like a minority. I'm just curious what you meant by that.
Well, I mean, like in terms of maybe not today, but in terms of history, when in the 19th century, maybe immigrants coming from countries like Ireland and Italy that were more Catholic, they didn't represent the richest subgroups in the United States, and they had to fight for a place of voting and representation. And it just for me, being here in California, I ended up going to a school that was Anglican, and you know, my family had to request that, you know, what church services, what part can I participate in, what part would I, maybe like a Muslim student, that I won't do certain steps of, you know, the weekly service.
Like the blessings, because I went to Christian school, the blessings.
Right, for me, I mean, communion is something that has a special significance that happens after confession, and if you're Catholic, normally it would be a Catholic priest that I would be, you know, part of that with. And so it made me, you know, when all the students in school, you know, go in line and do something, and you're sitting in the bench and you're kind of just now outside watching. But there were Jewish students there. I mean, it's not like I was the only one, but it started to give me a definition that, you know,
a feeling marginally.
I'm a little bit different, and I don't match everything in the United States. And then, you know, like when the Kennedys came to running for office, and John F. Kennedy was like the president, that was very important to the Catholic community in the United States. I'm a little younger than that, but I mean, I learned, I was exposed to all of that, the significance, if you're Catholic in the United States, you know, that, you know, like other communities, we're trying to voice what's important to us and organize and have a role.
Being Catholic in America is similar to being like a Shiite in Saudi Arabia. Like they're all Muslims, but it's its own little sect that's the minority there.
Yeah, that makes sense. But Shias in Saudi are also, there's danger of being murdered. So it's a little different. But I understand what you're saying. Absolutely, you didn't know that background. It's a little different. For sure.
Catholic and
Yeah. I think America got started. It's like interesting historically because a lot of the people that came over here, like the Protestant and the Quakers and all that, were escaping press, like being like the Church in England and the King, and they were all like we want religious freedom. That's a lot of people think it's interesting because a lot of people think like America wasn't founded. It's like we were founded on the idea of religious freedom from the Catholic Church that wanted like to control every aspect. And I just think it's interesting historically that
Going off of that point specifically, America has the separation of church and state kind of built into it. At the very same time, everyone has their certain specific religious upbringing, even if it's completely atheism, that have spiritual or community laws dictated to you. And this is open for group discussion, this question. What role should religion play in American politics, and what role should it not? Given that it exists, and it has to exert some sort of pressure just by its existence, where should that be focused? How should that be adopted by the government, and how should it be excluded?
So I would argue that if you really dig deep into our Constitution, that historically, most of the people that were like George Washington, founding fathers, they have religious background and had spiritual morals ingrained in them since childhood, and that the founding of our country, I would argue, the Constitution was based on the morals of the Bible and Christianity. I think they created the church and state law based off of their past of Europe and Catholic Church of like, we don't want like a king, we don't want the powers to be to say like you can't do this, you can't do this, but they did want the morals that they had grown up with to be ingrained into our Constitution.
So the First Amendment has two main clauses in regards to religion: no establishment clause and the free exercise clause. And every person in America has the freedom to exercise the religion they want to choose to exercise. If you want to be an atheist, you have the power to choose that mentally, and you're now an atheist. If you want to be a Catholic, you go to Mass, you do all the Catholic stuff. You're Muslim, you go to the mosque, you pray 7 times the pillars of Islam. 5. So, I mean, free exercise means that it should always have a place in politics. I think going into the actual, like the way the division of church and state has been used is people are saying, oh, if I hear a pray, that's established prayer. It establishes religion. And it's like, no, it doesn't. Because if you hear a prayer, you can go, that's a bunch of hogwash. Boom, done. It's hogwash to you. It didn't make you a Catholic because you sat in a Catholic Mass one day. You know what I mean? So, like, when we go to, like, our schools, that's been the main battleground for separation of church and state. And I use battleground because of the born-again Christian background. It's, you know, it's just where we've been doing all the constitutional work mostly. I mean, there's been a few things at courthouses with, like, the 10 Commandments. Why can't you have the 10 Commandments? Every one of them is part of our laws, except for, like, the first 3 that have to do with naming God and everything. But it doesn't establish it as a Christian building just because it has the 10 Commandments on it. It's a free exercise thing, and the majority, unfortunately, in a republic makes the rules. And so if the majority says, hey, we want that there, that is the free exercise of the democratic process.
Do you think it's like comfort too? Like, I think a lot of, like, you know, like, you know, when someone says I love you and they're not, like, thinking, I think God is sometimes like that. In schools, you do the Pledge of Allegiance. You're just like, God, God, God. I believe in God. We, like, pray and all that. And I think for a lot of people, it's very colloquial. And I think a lot of religion is also comfort. Like, for me too, like, when I go into a mosque, I'm instantly comforted, even though I'm not religious at all. There's like a comfort in that. And I think to be very dramatic, and some European countries have done this where there's no sign of religion, it's been wiped. It feels very, like, sterilized. And I personally think in America, the beauty is to have other religions. Like, when you're in New York, you walk around, you might hear the noise from a mosque, like a prayer. You might hear, like, a Catholic person. You might hear someone praying, a Buddhist. Like, that's, like, the melting pot of our country. And we're a country built on immigrants. So immigrants are going to have different religions. And I think that the beauty is to have that connection and to have it come together. So a lot of times when we're now, like, separating church and state in such a dramatic way, if it's authentic to who you are, if you go up there and you're a candidate and you say, I believe in God, and that's authentic to who you are, great. But if you're doing it to pander to the Midwest or to the area that you think is like the Bible Belt, then that's wrong. Because you're then being a fallacy, and then you're caught in some restroom with some, you know, like, someone that's not your wife. It's like, you know, like, things are not aligning. Like, and that's, like, kind of where I call bullshit on it.
Yeah.
And a lot of religious Muslim spiritual leaders do the same thing. They say a lot of stuff, and then behind closed doors, it's bullshit. So I think for me, it's about authenticity when it comes to religion.
On Gregory wrote On Pastoring, and in it he says that exact stuff there. He's going, the power that comes with the church and being a godly man is sought by the worst people. And, like, he was really criticizing the Catholic Church at that moment.
Because the money industry, they made a lot of money.
A lot of money. A lot of money and power, and you can manipulate it, and that attracts wolves in shepherd's clothing. And that is definitely one of the biggest problems in American politics as far as religion goes, because you have Trump going, I love God. Look who's the blood. You know what I mean? Like,
it's like Saddam Hussein. He said he loved God. He's like, I have to go pray. I mean, if someone is killing their people and then saying, I'm going to go pray, people can believe it, but a lot of times the biggest critics of religion always believe that. Oh, look at Trump. He's a godly man. No, he's not. That's not the God that he's just saying the word, right? The word and the actions aren't like.
and there's
But does he want to be forgiven? Like, you know what I mean? Like, there's a level where I'm like, you made fun of everyone. And again, there's nothing wrong with sex work. And if he wants to be with a porn star, that's fine. But him to then, like, disrespect women and then do that and then say, I love my wife, it's like, you don't. Like, you can't do all that. I mean, you can, but, like, you shouldn't be running the country. That
doesn't make sense.
If you're a reality star, great. You do that. You do all those things. But to run the country, I think there's a level of I think that the office used to have a lot of respect. And I think that what he's done is saying, I believe in God, and then coming and being president, it's like you're disrespecting the office and religion, like all together. So
Your big comment before that I thought was really neat is comparing the United States to Europe, and like that there's something beautiful about having so many different churches or mosques or temples and stuff that represent so many different religions here in our country, and that it's really wonderful when there are communities that are active and support that. It's kind of sad there was in the news that a lot of Christian churches that as people in different congregations and stuff, they're not as active, they don't participate as much, or maybe people moving to suburbs and things. There's a lot of great city church structures in places in the country, in the Midwest or the East, that are getting repurposed now as like inns or restaurants. Yeah, I mean, the building architecturally is important enough to say, but it's no longer a church. It's neat to say good old buildings, but there's a sadness to that too, that that there was a whole community around the building like that in the past, and now so when there are different religious groups and they're actively doing their worshiping and their involvement as a community, that's really a neat thing to have in the United States and have that represented all over the country. Different immigrant groups and different religious denominations and stuff. Right? So just, what I would feel is that I'm concerned when, a big organization like multiple churches that all belong together, or someone could say the Catholic Church is like an international organization, or that would apply to, some of the Muslim groups, and when a church tries to exert a lot of influence over policies, particularly beyond just freedom of expression and protection of civil rights for their members, but you start to get into we want to institute laws about changing when marriage can work, or what women's role is in our way they should dress or act in the family or in community and jobs, and rights to go to school and stuff. I feel that's taking a religious view and starting to interfere with what is our agreed constitutional rights and structure of what we want as citizens in our country. So I would take a more secular view on those things, that there needs to be a limit on religious pressure on the government. But I think it's great that there's a religious element to our lives.
Mm-hmm. And I would argue a lot of people don't realize, like, that historically, if you look at actually the church and state law was to protect the church.
Right.
It was to protect the church, because the founders of our nation decided, like, given the background they had come from, they didn't want, no matter which way the pendulum swing, right or left, no matter what, they wanted to, like, we believe this is what we believe the Bible says, and we want this to be, no matter what way the pendulum swings, like, we don't want the government to be able to force any laws on the church. And that's where I argue a lot of, we are swinging a lot of ways, and it's like, as a church, you should be like, this is what we believe the Bible says, and morally, this is what we believe in, no matter what the government says, right or left. Like, this is what we believe in, and this is what we're firm in, no matter what, till the end of time, no matter what the government says.
Establishment was definitely directed towards the government, not making laws that say only this kind of church, you can't do this kind of church. The Muslim ban idea, obviously you can practice Islam here, but saying that you're just banning Muslim countries is a very
unconstitutional countries where you're banning people that are living.
Right, you're banning, exactly, and they leave, they can't come back. Sometimes it's just like, what? But it's just the establishment, that type of law is, to me, an establishment of against a church or a mosque in this situation, because the government can't make laws that says that's biased against a religion. That's the whole establishment clause. Is like the people these days want to tax. Yeah, I know.
But I think he was saying that like the church should be able to do whatever it wants within its own entity.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
Right. So
Yeah.
you don't have, so then how, then you're not going to follow the rules of the government. It's going to be its own thing.
I mean, as long as you're not being like against like violent or anything
Right,
that
right,
goes
right.
against, but you should have the right to say this is what like we believe in. Like Scientologists can say this is what we believe in, and
Right.
like you should be able to have the right as long as it doesn't go against the Constitution. Saying this is what I believe in, no matter what the government changes laws, as long as it's not against like anything violent or anything. But it's like morally, you should have the right to say this is what I believe in.
Are you talking about, because you said that you were pro-life, so are you speaking about abortion rights? Like within a church, you can do whatever you want as far as that goes. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, so like
Yeah.
that for instance, for life, like the Bible says life begins at conception, and even if it is legal here, like that's what the Bible says, and that's as a Christian, the church should say this is what a pastor should be able to go in the pulpit and say, like this is what I believe, and no matter what our government says, this is what I believe, and this is what I think you should like adhere to if you're call yourself Christian.
But isn't the pastor a man? So why does it make opinions about women's reproductive health?
I mean, he's just saying what the Bible believes in.
I understand that, but I'm just saying, like, I think it's interesting that you say a pastor is going to speak on women's reproductive rights. That's like,
Which I think is because women are not only Christian, they are Muslim, they are atheist, they are polytheist, etc.
Sure.
So I understand your point.
well, I'm saying, well, I just don't think a man should go in and speak on a woman's reproductive health. That's what.
Or
that's what
somebody
I'm saying.
that doesn't have a uterus.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
I
Exactly.
get it.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, for me, can you restate your question again?
Well, I would actually shift it over.
Oh, okay. Then I'll just.
When it comes to these sort of gray area matters, let's say the taxation or not taxation of churches or religious entities, federal holidays being what religious holidays can qualify as a federal holiday, and then being a republic and a federation at the same time where Alabama can decide one thing and California can decide another, and it's geographically based. And how do we deal with it at a federal governmental level that everything can be so tribal in these ways that you guys spoke at length of how great it is, all of these different tribes, but when it comes down to federal compromise, how do we negotiate that?
Oh, okay. So I actually was going to touch upon this because growing up, as someone who was always questioning religion that was being forced on me, well, they didn't see it that way. My creators, my parents, my grandparents, but it felt like that because I go to school and, like you say, we say the Pledge of Allegiance, and we say what I forgot it. It's something about like
Under God.
under God, right? And I thought to myself, like, as I was learning in school, I was like, where is this separation of church and state? It's instituted in our schools. And I think like another one is evolution. I know that like that being taught doesn't really align with Christian beliefs too. So I guess they can make that argument. Okay, then you say under God in the Pledge of Allegiance, but you're being taught evolution. So like, what do you want? And then the federal holidays. I've never. Can you as a Muslim, or can you name any holidays?
We don't get any credit. The only time we got credit was from Obama. So Persian New Year, he gave us credit, and then Eid al-Fitr, which is the end of Ramadan, we got some credit. But Obama was the first president that ever gave us any credit.
I don't know anything about that.
Do you know what Ramadan is? That's when Muslims fast for a month.
Yes.
So every day, and then you break your fast at the end of every day.
Yes.
And so yeah, it's just a religious like holiday. It's more like cultural, but like I think it's funny because a lot of federal holidays are like Christopher Columbus Day or Memorial Day, and it's all these like white colonial like men, and I'm like, I don't relate to that.
Exactly.
So it's like, well, great, I got a day off, but like, you know what I mean? And I think for a lot of this country, they're so mixed and there's so many different types of immigrants, they don't really relate to that holiday. So that's where I kind of immigrants.
This is
guys that died, you wouldn't have a free place to live.
Well, yeah, I agree with you there, but I also have a lot of problems with war because a lot of America goes into Middle Eastern countries pretending to be police and kill my people. So I have a lot of opinions about that. But at the end of the day, I'm an American, and I understand that Memorial Day we are honoring our veterans, but we're also honoring war.
Yeah.
So when you have like holidays with parades, and a lot of people are losing their sons and their daughters at 18, 19. So I think that it's hard for me to like kind of be like rah rah, let's like drink and have fun, but people have lost their children. Like I know a lot of people that
That's exactly what you should be.
yeah, but why are people drinking and partying? That's not really remembering people. That's death. Like for me, I just think it's dark, and I think that like we are continuing to what's the word, like kind of glorify war. Exactly. That's what, and I get it. We have to protect our borders, but the more we demonize other countries, the easier. Like if you say that everyone in the Middle East is a terrorist and wants to kill Americans, which is false, because if you've ever been to the Middle East, they love Americans. They love. I lived in Iran for 2 years. When I moved there from the U.S., people thought I was like a celebrity. They're like, oh my God, you're from America. Like, do you know Tom Cruise? Like, a lot of people don't understand that other countries like revere America because it's a standard. It's kind of like America's like that hot girl in school that everyone wants to be with. Like, everyone in the world wants to be with America because it's like this idea of the American dream. Nowhere else in the world can you. My dad came here with $75 in his bank account, and he is a multi-millionaire. I don't think anywhere else in the world could you do that within the span of a couple of years, barely speaking English. There's not a lot of places you can do that. So I think that there is a lot of beauty in that. So yeah.
So going back to the federal holidays,
Yeah.
I don't know anything about Jewish holidays. I don't know anything about Muslim holidays. I don't know anything about Buddhist holidays, if there is any. I only know about the Christian holidays because they are, I believe, indoctrinated in our system. We get the 2 weeks off in the winter for Christmas and celebration, and I think for other holidays, I don't know. I can't confirm because they called it Christmas vacation in school. Easter, you get it off. See, I didn't grow up.
Well, I celebrate Christmas because Christmas is kind of like, I feel like a lot of the holidays have now become kind of colloquial, commercial, and like
It's not.
does it kind of lost its religion? I think, and again, it started with a pagan holiday anyway. Putting up a tree is pagan. It's not really Christianity.
Yeah.
So a lot of it is like, I think a lot of things get muddled together, and I think that like that's the same with politics and religion and immigration and abortion. All these hot button topics that come up every 4 years. I think the reason they come up is that it's like things that people that are on the ground are dealing with every day. Like, I just think that like, and I don't mean to single you out, but like, there's a lot of just like straight white men that like to kind of speak for reproductive rights. There's a lot of like cisgendered men that want to speak for trans rights and military bans. And I'm just tired of seeing that. Cause I'm like, if you don't have a uterus, your skin color is not a certain way, don't have a fucking opinion. Like, I'm sorry. Like, it's just, it's so like, it's getting old. Like, what did you say? Racist of a white man? I'm sorry, that's not real racism. I don't think it is. Well, I mean, sorry, I guess I am.
You have an opinion. That's a
Not at a political level. I don't think that on a political level. No, thank you. I don't think so, especially when you're having an anti-opinion and you're then marginalizing people further. I don't think you should have it. That's just my opinion.
I just don't think you should have an anti.
That's what I'm saying, anti-opinion. I'm not saying an opinion. I'm just saying you're having an anti-opinion. You're now in Alabama not allowing someone that's been raped to have an abortion. That's you having an opinion that's anti, and it's not correct. So you want someone to raise their rapist child? Oh yeah, but you have to give birth, and I don't have a uterus. But would you like to give birth to someone that raped you?
Fuck no.
There you go.
No.
So the only person in this room should have an opinion is her.
You know why a lot of people don't know why historically abortion did get started? Like, I mean,
I can tell you, I'm indigenous. I have indigenous backgrounds, and before Columbus came to discover America, that wasn't discovered; it was already here. And called it India, and called my ancestors, at least half of them, Indians. No, Bartolomeo de las Casas is the name of the priest, I believe, or a friar that came with Christopher Columbus. His name is Cristobal Colon in my country. He wrote down a lot of, he recorded a lot of the ways in which the people lived. You know, you had people who were two-spirited. So you have like people like me, non-binary. So I don't identify as a woman. I am a non-binary human being. I feel like sometimes I have like my testosterone levels, you know, they all rise up, and sometimes my estrogen levels rise up. And for me, it's very fluid. But back to the whole abortion conversation. Women at the time, you know, they were naked. These people were naked, and because of that, they were labeled as savages. They were also labeled as savages because women, they did abortions themselves. If they didn't want to have a child that they were going to have with a man that they didn't want to have it with, or they just didn't want to raise a child, they just did it themselves. And it's a natural process of a body, you know. If you don't want to raise a child and you know you can't raise it, I think that someone who's going to go through that physical process of giving birth and ripping your vagina and taking a shit or so whatever, it's a very painful process.
Right.
You have I think as a person with a uterus, because trans men have uteruses sometimes, they should have the option of, maybe I don't want to bring a child into this earth. Maybe I don't want to raise this child. Maybe I don't want to give this child more problems than it already has by being born in a system, like you said, adoption centers. They're not the most, they don't take care. I lived next door to a foster home, and turnover all of the time. And I would talk to my neighbors, and sometimes you have beautiful experiences as foster homes, and yes, I would never take that credit away from them. But also, they don't take care of their children as well as they should. And maybe that, I don't know the background of this, but that might be because the state doesn't take care of them. They don't fund them that well.
A lot of them end up in sex work. I mean, I have friends that are social workers. It's easy to say like just adopt or give away, but like it's different to like give birth to a child, then have emotions, because you're not a surrogate. This is like your child.
Yeah.
It's different if you're a surrogate and you're doing this as a job and you've kind of emotionally done the work. So I think a lot of times, and again, I'm a man, I identify as a man, but like at the end of the day, I also identify with the feminine energy. And I think there's an idea with a lot of men that are just like, I don't want to talk about abortion. It's kind of awkward. Like, do the morning after pill, get an abortion, give it away. Okay, you got raped, then get an adoption. Because they don't want to. And I understand that people see at the moment of conception that this child now is a human being.
Yes.
But until a kid has a heartbeat, I really don't believe that it's a real thing.
This is where I think
Until it's on an ultrasound, I don't accept
and yeah, a lot of like one of my best friends, he is having a child soon. We're having a huge argument over this, and I say, okay, if you don't want to have it, that's your right, but I don't think the federal government should enforce it. And also, and this is where I'm from Baltimore. I truly believe this with all of my heart. I believe that Planned Parenthood is evil, and I believe they want. I mean, I believe that.
You know where it's right, where it is evil? The beginnings of it, because I forget her name, Margaret.
Yeah, that's
something.
what I was. Historically, they wanted to get rid of the African American race, and that's why they created it.
Okay, but now that they're giving free condoms, they're preventing STDs. You're saying it's evil, but you're not thinking about all the other prophylactics. But they're preventing pregnancy. So you're saying you believe in it. If you believe in no abortion,
I'm very for all.
but they also provide that for free. So when you're closing them down and they're getting defunded, then people in those neighborhoods now are having more children or having to get abortions because of that.
Yeah, people love sex. They're not going to stop.
They're not going to abstain. I mean, look at the AIDS crisis. People were like, just abstain, and many people died of AIDS because that's ridiculous to say, don't act on it, don't abstain. It's like, it's very immature of a plan. And I think what you said that really stuck out for me was you said enforce. The government's not enforcing. They're not going to people's doors and going, you're pregnant, have an abortion. They're allowing the opportunity. They're taking the shame away from it. And the danger. You know how many people die doing abortions in back alleys because of companies defunding Planned Parenthood? People are dying of that. Do you think it's better that someone die?
I think economically too, it's interesting though. Especially Los Angeles. Los Angeles is one of the most economically diverse places. go to the rich neighborhoods in the city. Go to Beverly Hills. Go to Sherman Oaks. You're never. I guarantee you will never. I was even surprised in Burbank that they have a Planned Parenthood, but it's in the ghetto part of Burbank. It is. You will never find in a rich neighborhood a Planned Parenthood.
Why would
ever.
have a Planned Parenthood? Those people have perfect insurance and they can
Yeah.
go to their
They
primary
can
care
go to the
doctor.
doctors to do that.
It's delusional to say that because it's like those people don't have insurance. You go to Planned Parenthood or you go to the LGBT center because you don't have insurance.
Or
People, you don't drive up to the LGBT center in a Range Rover. Most likely, you have a primary care doctor, like you go there and get your free STDs panel and your free condoms and whatever you need.
you have the money, the resources
Yeah,
to
of
go
course.
take care of those problems, those issues.
But what if somebody like rich doesn't want the parents to know?
They have the
They
money.
have cash. They just
They
give
have
cash.
money.
I mean,
They,
if you live in Beverly Hills, you can give a doctor $25,000 to do an abortion and nobody will know about it. I mean, it's not, when there's a financial aspect, listen, in this country, you can do anything with money. You have a blank check and everyone, I work as a publicist with celebrities. We have done everything and anything. If someone gives you a blank check, you can do anything.
oh yeah.
Any problem will disappear. And the show Scandal, that's real life. Like there are fixers that come into this town and they can do anything. So to say that like if you have money, you have like some kind of access. So
Yeah.
that's, and look at these politicians. There is the prime example. How many times do people like, Wiener and get into these scandals and it goes away?
Yeah.
Within a month, nobody's even talking about it.
I mean,
Yeah,
a lot,
That's it.
exactly. A lot of those.
Kavanaugh, it's all of it. It's like after a while, these things eventually, and Kavanaugh still comes back, but eventually a lot of this stuff cycles out because the news is kind of fickle and they have money.
And I've read a lot about, politicians, they claim to be very pro-life. They have a baby with their mistress. And where was the pro-life there? I mean, they're not going to have the child. And sometimes at some point, they do have the children. And they're very about, oh, I'm very faithful to my wife because this is the Christian way. I find it very hypocritical. I am not against the Christian religion whatsoever. I think that when somebody practices truthfully, it's a beautiful thing, just like with any religion. You practice the peaceful aspects of it, and it's peace to me. To me, it's a spiritual thing. If you find comfort in faith, that is, it's a beautiful thing because we all find comfort in something, and but when you use it to kind of strike somebody or something because, let's say, somebody doesn't want to bring a child into this world, I think that you take away being in their shoes, being empathetic. None of you will ever get pregnant. None of you have been, if you've ever been raped, I'm sorry if you've ever been in that experience, but somebody inseminated a semen in you, and then that's going to produce another being. And even if you aren't raped, if you can't, I'm pro-abortion. I'm not even like pro-choice. I'm pro-abortion. Well, I guess that is pro-choice, right? It's your choice to have an abortion. But if you're somebody that does not want to have an abortion, hey, that is your choice. If you're somebody that wants to have not even needs, but wants to have an abortion because they just don't want to raise a child, you should have that right. And you say federal law shouldn't. You were going to say federal law shouldn't.
But yeah, I think Planned Parenthood should be a private thing. Like it should not be funded by the federal government or any government agency. Like if it wants to be its own private thing, sure. Like
It'll go out of business in a week. I think that's ridiculous.
I don't think that. Well, actually, no. I don't think. I know. Planned Parenthood. It doesn't only provide abortion, but you said like pro-contraception. It provides that. For me, do any of you have breasts? No, mine are small, but they're still there. I get checked for breast cancers. I don't have them. Pap smears. Like I can get cervical cancer. Yeah, I may not get testicular cancer, but I can get cervical cancers. And they provide that. I don't have the means to go to a private doctor because I'm poor. I don't.
Does that
Yeah.
after you finish too? I know Will. And
Just
one
wanna
of
say-
St. James is too.
I'm finished.
I'm actually very pro-choice. I think women should be able to go abort babies when they want to. But I'm also very pro-life in that I think everyone should choose life as often as possible. We've lost like almost 80 million babies, would-be babies through abortion since the 70s. That's a lot of population. That's a lot of GDP. It's a lot of love, a lot of opportunities lost. I don't think that most liberals, as in like Democrats, have a very realistic perspective of when life begins. And I get it, you can't say life starts at conception, because then you're gonna have someone say then it's murder at conception. And if it's murder, it needs to be punished by law. And so we have this like weird situation where people willingly ignore facts about the human life cycle from conception to death, just so they can say it's not murder. And that to me is just foolishness. But whatever makes you feel better at night. As a libertarian, go be you. I want you to choose the liberties that make you happy. I might be over here going, well, you shouldn't have killed that baby, but you did. Such is life. And I don't want to throw anyone in jail for it, because our jails are already overpopulated. They're already costing us way too much money. And it's an attack on minorities too. I mean, that is where it started. It's still definitely part of the thing. Is if you look at the statistics, it's unproportionately minorities. More white people have abortions, but it's not the 70% number. It's like 49%, which is still more, but it's just unproportionate by design. So I mean, I get where he's coming from with it, but I definitely, you two are right that women do have that, what is it, inalienable right to your body. And it's the constitutional, it's already said. I mean, as much, I personally think everything in Alabama is going to get shut down eventually. It's just going to take one trip back to the Supreme Court. They're like, no, it's unconstitutional. It's already established that way. So,
It's like handmaid's tale. I mean,
yeah.
like handmaid's tale. And I have a question for you, because it seems like, correct me if I'm wrong, I'm not trying to be offensive, but it seems like you're flip-flopping, because you're saying I'm pro-choice, but then I'm saying, and then you're saying, but I'm pro-life, and then you're
because it's like you said, you have to be one or the other. And I think there's choice. You should have the choice, but you should choose life.
there's a judgment in that, and it seems like a pro-life
I
judgment.
have the liberty to judge people, and you should be choosing life. Do you love your life? I love my life. You should choose life. What's wrong with judging people?
I mean, it's fine to judge people, but you're coming off like it's shaming. You're coming off very like I'm cool with anything, whatever makes you sleep. But it's very judgmental. It's like when people say I'm fine with gay people, but don't act on it. It's cool. Yeah, like you're. I'm just saying you're trying to come off like I'm very cool with everything, but the way it's coming off, and this is both of us. That's not just. But I think that there comes off an energy of like, okay, this is my opinion, but then I'm going to judge you and pretend that I also like the other side. It seems like
you're going to pretend that abortion isn't getting rid of life.
I don't have a uterus, so I don't really have an opinion, so she can speak on it. Yeah. I don't really think it's sexist. I think you called me racist and sexist, so I'm going to correct you, because first of all, if I have a discriminatory energy towards white people, a lot of white men have historically been awful to anyone that's minority. So that's something that I'm going to carry, and that's the immigrant struggle, and she laughs and she gets it. And moving forward, also working in entertainment, I've had to work 3 times as hard to get half the opportunities because I'm Middle Eastern. So I know that I'm white passing, but my name is always going to get me in trouble. Being gay is going to hold me back. There's a lot of stuff. Mm-hmm. So I don't appreciate being called racist, because it's me having an energy towards white men that speak up and have strong opinions about a woman's uterus. You don't have a uterus. You can have an opinion, but if you're coming off saying, I have this very strong opinion, women shouldn't have access to it. You're not, and again, it's not you. I'm talking about politicians. What I'm talking about is, when I say white men, I don't mean this white men in this room. I'm talking about politicians. When a white man at the top that has power to pass a law is going to pass a law in all of Alabama where people are maybe getting raped, maybe again having a child, it doesn't have to be raped, but that's not right. But I think the thing that I'm trying to say is that when you say it's fine, I don't think it is. That's what I'm trying to say. You're saying words that don't match the way you're speaking. That's all I'm saying. I'm not trying to like come free. I'm just that's all.
That's not true, because right now you just said it can't to me, which to me can't means it's now like it should be banned almost. I can't have an opinion. I can't. But I mean, the way you said it though was
I'm talking about you.
Okay.
Making that very clear.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
But I said should, and you were offended by should. But isn't can't
Being very dramatic.
isn't can't much more dramatic than should? Like
There's
can't.
a lot of judgment and shame. You're like telling people how to feel.
Can is more direct. and
Can is more direct, it's more black
can-
and white.
Yeah.
Politicians
can-
shouldn't, like, I didn't say politicians shouldn't, I said, look, they can't be speaking on topics they're not.
So women can't have abortions is nicer than saying women should have abortions.
It's more direct, and
more direct.
it's more,
Not flip-flopping.
it's more, yeah, it is more like on your sleeve. It's
Yeah.
more like, you know, you,
You're owning your feelings.
Yeah,
The way
it's
I'm
like,
strong in my
right.
feeling, you're not doing that.
you're saying it
very,
with your whole
Yes,
chest.
You,
And I
you
think
think you
it's
have to
better.
be the other, and I'm.
well, I think when it comes to politics, you do need to be one or the other. When you're making decisions that are going to the Supreme Court, I mean, you can say whatever you want. You qualify me in so many different ways. Keep doing it. It's fine.
I find
It's
it
like-
interesting that a lot of people say they're pro-life, and yet we see a lot of my people in cages,
Mhm.
children in cages, and where's the pro-life movement there?
So it's for like
Where's
white
the
people.
This is
For white
one thing
people.
that I'm questioning.
Yes.
I just want to ask too, like, this is why, like, I'm very thankful, like, with my girlfriend, she's very, like, if we're on the same page, but like, if I did get a girlfriend, and like I said, I'm very pro-life, I understand that, like, the girls have to carry it for 9 months, but it's like half of my genetic code is in that child. It's like, do the guys have any say at all? Like any say? Like I understand, like you have to carry it for 9 months, but it does take two to tango. Like
course
it does
it
take. There's two genetic codes.
I'm sorry,
Those available.
well, actually, I'm not. But if I'm sorry, I have a habit of saying I'm
Don't say you're
sorry. I don't mean to offend, that's what I mean to say.
Yeah.
If I may.
Just do it.
Yeah, if my boyfriend impregnated me, he does not have a say. If I want to keep,
Mhm.
if I want to keep or get rid of the baby, I'm doing that work for 9 months. Think
Agreed.
about think about a job that you will do for 9 months. Think about that.
Our job is 15 minutes.
Yeah. Oh.
It's long.
Yeah, that's
So,
long.
Maybe that's where society is going wrong. And I understand. I argue the reason why Baltimore and Detroit and many cities are the way they are is because guys are not being men and raising children. Like
you don't have the financial ability to raise children. You're making blanket statements. What if you don't have the financial ability to feed your child? You cannot have another child. I can ask you a quick question. Side note, like, what if, okay, you have a girlfriend that's amazing, you have a great relationship. God forbid you cheat on her and that person gets pregnant. You're just gonna, okay, you have a baby now with this random person.
it's
Yeah.
my fault that I did that.
Okay. Owning it, I understand.
I'm owning it, and that's what guys do not do is own it.
I appreciate that.
Is they don't like if you it takes 9 months to create, but if you like have sex without contraception, like the purpose of it, it is pleasure, but the purpose of that is to create a human being. Like biologically,
I
we're
have
the
sex.
only species.
No, we're not. Dolphins have sex for
They
pleasure.
do. Penguins,
We're
a
the only
lot of them.
species that don't
There's a
do
lot.
it biologically. Every other species that biologically has sex to create another human being.
I know, but when you're having sex with your girlfriend, you're really thinking about that. Like, I'm trying to make a baby. Like, that's not what you're thinking. You're trying to get off. Like, it's delusional to say, I'm sorry, it's just delusional to me to say that every time you engage in any intercourse that you're thinking, like, I am trying to have a baby. Like,
I don't have sex to procreate.
No.
Like I don't.
I mean, I definitely don't. I mean, but condoms break. You could have a contraception and you could have a condom break. You
And
could,
birth control will
Sure.
can fail.
I'm proof that birth control doesn't work. My mom was but she had a high chance of dying in pregnancy. I am proof that the pill does not work. Birth control does not work. I'm proof. I am living proof. Hi.
it still doesn't work. There's also something to say for population control. You mentioned 80 million, fetuses that were aborted. We don't have space for 80 million people. Like, we don't. Over the span of 1970, we don't have the space for that many people. Because those people are then going to procreate. 80 million fetuses are then going to procreate. Have you been to China? Have you been to India? I've been to both those countries, and there's a lot of issues in those countries. There's caste systems. There's people on the street. I've seen children dead on the street in India. Like those countries have a lot of issues. So to say, oh look, this country has all these people is again speaking from a place of privilege.
And then
It's on understanding the undertones of what these countries go through, where people are so rich and people are so poor. And that's the beauty of America, is that middle class, we don't want to lose that, because that is what grounds our country. So I think it's so important when we speak about abortion, immigration, all these things lead to financial stuff. At the end of the day, I am, as someone that's like a child of an immigrant, I'm a first generation, I also understand that we don't have space for everyone to just flood into our country. I never said open the doors wide open for everyone. But at the same time, we have to have better stringent laws. We cannot put up walls. We cannot be doing Muslim bans. When you ban people that are Muslim, you're banning doctors, lawyers, professionals, people that are saving the world, neurosurgeons, astronauts, etc. And so I think we can't be doing that. And when, like, one thing that we do align on is when you are, let's say you're a woman that's had, I don't know, like 8 or 9 abortions, there comes a level where there needs to be, the government needs to track that stuff and do some therapy. Mental health is so important in this country. If someone has got 8 abortions, maybe there's something that they need to have a dialogue or a conversation, or when someone's transitioning, have the correct therapist there to help them through that process. Training at Kaiser Permanente has now done trans training, how to deal with non-binary people, how to speak, use the correct pronouns, do not call you a she, and understand the power of a pronoun. And a lot of this country, the politicians are like, well, we're just going to talk about these 4 issues every 4 years. What about other things that people deal with on a like city to city level? You know what I'm worried about? I'm not worried about climate change and abortion and immigration. Yes, I am. You know what I'm worried about? When my trash is getting picked up. Government is also very micro level, and I think micro and then macro. I think it's really, we still have these conversations. All we do is talk about immigration. I'm like, yes, immigration is important. When I live in West Hollywood, I need to know when my trash is getting picked up. What are we doing about homelessness? Like, someone took a shit in my parking lot. What do I do? Like, a human shit. Who do I call? There's stuff like that.
I can work with that.
You know what I mean? There's a lot of stuff where people don't, or like, there's a lot of ordinances for people that are like low income and they need to get their rent paid. You can call someone and they can help you with your rent. A lot of people don't know about this stuff. Like, I'm someone that makes less than 30 grand a year. I need to have access to those funds.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Like, and having access to that stuff is like, that's what government's about. I don't know. Let's just
I'm gonna stop this right here too.